Great day, everyone, and welcome to the Voices of a Black Man. Today, I have the pleasure to speak with none other than Ryan Ray. Voices of a Black Man is a platform where Black men are able to be seen and heard in a safe space, respected for just who they are. Everyone else is telling their narrative, and we've not heard from them. So, the Voices of Black Men is a place where they get to tell their story through their lens. So, we're talking to Ryan Ray today, and I can't wait to get started with him. I'm super excited about having him as a guest. He's a really good friend. And I think that in some ways, we compete. We compete, but good, healthy competition to push each other to be better, to do better. And I thank you for being involved. I don't know if you know that this is a series. We're doing a series, and every day at 12 p.m. Eastern, we're coming on live to talk to a different Black man every day for the month of July. So, Ryan, are you there?
I am here, Sherelle. How are you?
Hey, 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 how you doing?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks. I hope that you are.
I am. I posted last night. I was going through some videos and some things and found the one where we were at the City Club. You spoke to the group at the City Club. 2017. We're in
Wow.
2020. I just want to put that in
Wow.
perspective. I'm just saying.
Right. Time flies. And wow, is it flying right now?
Yes, yes. 2020 is something of its own, right?
I'm telling you, we are already into the second half of what has been a roller coaster of a year.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Now, I want to, I thank you for coming on. I thank you for, you don't know what it meant to me when you said yes. You
Wow.
know, we kind of knew each other in 2017, kind of had been in a couple of rooms together, but not really known each other
Mhm.
then. And throughout the years, got to know a little bit more about each other. And so to have you here to be able to tell your story through your lens, I just want to get right into it. How about you?
I'm excited. Let's do it. And first, let me just say thank you. First of all, for the courage that you had to take this plunge, this leap of faith, and create a platform where Black men could share their voices, where it's sometimes and most of the times assumed, how we may think, feel, approach life and certain issues. So thank you for creating this platform. I've had the privilege of hearing a couple other brothers come on and share. And my good friend, Pastor Linwood Long, I think on Tuesday you had him. And so just great content, great cast of speakers. So kudos to you for putting this all together. And when you asked, I had to say yes, absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you. So, getting started in it, I just want to start from the beginning.
Sure.
Where you from? How'd you grow up? Who at the young Ryan? Who was forming and shaping the young Ryan?
Wow, great questions. Let me take it back.
Right.
I was born in what I like to call the big metropolis of Dunn, North Carolina. And, Dunn sits on the county line of Harnett County and Sampson County. And so I was just inside of the Sampson County line. So I went to Sampson County schools, which was more of the all of Dunn, you probably would say, is country, but I was in the country part where the cotton and the tobacco and, the tractors and farmland was. And so, I grew up in that culture. The young Ryan was so blessed, fortunate, and even privileged to have had both parents growing up. I don't take that for granted. They raised me in the church, not many Sundays that I wasn't there, or Wednesday nights at Bible study. And so grateful for that background and that upbringing. Another unique thing, Sherelle, was that I was within walking distance. We lived in a neighborhood that was a horseshoe. And in that neighborhood, of probably, I don't know, 20, 25 homes, where both sets of my grandparents, my mother's grandparents and my father's grandparents, lived right next door to an aunt, and another cousin on the opposite side where I lived. So all of that family and love and unity was right there, in walking distance. And so if something was going on, we were all there celebrating and just having a good time together. So, I was very, very fortunate to be brought up in just such loving and nourishing environments. I have, two other aunts who I call mom, right? Lots of other, you know, father figures, aunt figures, uncle figures. So I saw all of that and had all of that growing up. So very, very, I don't take that for granted at all.
Mm. So you grew up kind of with not just immediate family, but extended family around you.
Yep, absolutely.
And that was from birth till high school?
Yeah, birth through high school. So yeah, so just to set a little more context. So even in still going, so living in Sampson County, I went to a predominantly white elementary school. The only other nationalities or races that I saw probably through high school were whites, blacks, and American Indian. And so but predominantly white elementary school, predominantly white high school. In high school, I was a, three-sport athlete until my senior year, where I didn't run track because I wanted all the bells and whistles that comes along with the senior. And my pop said, well, if you want it, you're going to have to go out there and work to get it. And so, all of that was part of my upbringing, though.
Gotcha. So when going to school and living in Sampson County and having both parents there and having the extended family there, when you think back about that time, what are some of the best memories when it comes to things that you apply to your life today?
Wow. Yeah, I mean, I think it's love and service to other people, right? Like I saw, my grandparents just be such loving individuals who really had a care and concern for other people. They cared for their neighbors. They cared for the people in the neighborhood. When people needed something, a lot of times we were able to be there somehow as a community to work together. And so, one of the big principles that I've built my life on is just that. Is like, how do you build community in whatever you're doing, right? Like communities is a big word, but even in your job, in business, in the work that I do with Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership and Jobs for Life, is all about community. And to me, community is, if you break the word out, it's common unity. So how do you become in fellowship with other like-minded people who love one another, who are in support and encouraging one another, who aren't to tear one another down? And so, yeah, just those basic principles of just pure love, concern, and service to other people.
Yeah. So tell me about this community again. Break that word down one more time for me.
So community, if you break it out, common, unity. Right. And so I think there's so much power when you have like-minded people working together towards the same goal, or if it's just that, we want to have fun together. Right. But you need to be around people who's got the same mindset and same, perspectives as you do. So, yeah, having common unity with people is a powerful thing.
That's powerful. That's a powerful way of looking at it, So let me ask you this, because you got me with the community thing. I love it. I absolutely love it. So I may steal it, but I'll give you recognition if I steal it.
It's yours. Give me credit twice. After that, it's yours.
Oh, sounds good. Sounds good. Now I got you on recording, so I just want to make sure.
Fair enough.
So I'm going to go back and then come back up, because when you talk about community, I know you're talking about community at the human level. Which started with your family, which started with your community there. But I want to dig a little bit deeper and then bring it out and bring it back kind of to the community aspect and kind of some of the things that you do now.
Sure.
When was the first time that you realized that you were actually Black, and what did that mean?
I've heard you ask your other guests this question, and every time I think about it for myself, and the only thing, Sherelle, that I can come to is, and I don't know, it might sound bad, but it's so when we were younger, every Black History Month, the children would go into the cafeteria of the church and watch the Eyes on the Prize tapes. That was our Black history learnings growing up. And every Thursday, because it was Wednesday nights, so every Thursday when I got back to school, oh, I was mad. I was upset. And that's the only recollection I have of of feeling different, I guess, growing up, because I saw in those films who was on the other side of the water hose and the dogs and all of those things. And I saw who was aiming and doing the shooting and the pushing and the fighting and the beating. And those films would put me in a defense mode when I would go to school. I would no joke, I would go to school and dare somebody to step on my shoes, please, because now I'm ready, right? But yeah, that's the first recollection. I don't remember a personal encounter, but those experiences for sure.
Okay, all right. Eyes on the Prize.
Yeah.
Which were powerful. I think they still play those now. You know, they're still available, but during Black History Month, that was one of those things that I think growing up for me too was that was going to come on. If nothing else came on, that was coming on TV. Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, they sat us down in chairs looking at it probably was a black and white TV, looking at black and white films. I don't remember, but yeah, they would sit us down every year and we would watch those films, man. And so, yeah, so, you know, that helped shape me too, right? Like, I was like, man, like something's wrong with that, right? So, but I knew then that I was the other side. I was on the receiving end of this treatment that somehow just didn't seem right as a kid.
Gotcha. Now, you said you went to a predominantly white school, but there you just was Ryan?
Yeah, I mean, again, I thank God for parents and families who instilled in me that I could do anything, right? That I could have anything, that I could, that I wasn't inferior, that I wasn't less than, right? Like if I wanted to, I tried it, you know, and my parents gave me a pretty loose, you know, rope growing up. And so, and yeah, and then, you know, I learned how to navigate the waters, right, and do what was necessary to win, even young in life. And I say that by it was, you know, I learned to do it was like this: do enough to get by, which was the wrong mindset, but it was enough to be significant or relevant, if that makes sense. Okay. In an environment where so many others weren't, right? If that makes sense. But even still, it was the mindset of yes, you're somebody, son. And again, I think that came from the family and the love and the background that I grew up with.
Gotcha. So when you say do enough to get by, but also it allowed you to be significant, I totally understand what you're saying. But for our viewers, I want to make sure that they understand what you're saying. So how did that play out in your life during that time?
Yeah, great question. And so, you know, as a young man, you know, at 13, just to set a little more context, you know, I was working full time in the summers, 40 hours a week, cutting grass. And so the work ethic was there, right? I knew to go and work hard. However, I also began to sense as I was in school that information wasn't something that I was excited about learning. So in high school, I did enough to get by, but I knew what levers to pull to be significant, right? Like I knew who to have the relationships with. Like, like I'll give an example. I built such a relationship with administration that the end of the school year, like our last day of school, this was high school, I think, and I was dared to go throw water balloons at our principal, which I did, right? Because I took it, I dared me, I did it back then. Significance, right? And he took me in his office because he was embarrassed, right? Like I was wrong. He took me in his office, and no joke, we sat down and laughed about it, right? But he had to take a stand, right, to the public. But he knew who I was, and that it wasn't out of disrespect. It was totally out of fun. And so we went in the office and had a good time. And so what I mean by that was, again, it's not the principle that I live my life by now, but doing enough to get by because I hadn't found my passion. I hadn't found what really drove me then. But I knew what relationships to build. I knew what levers to pull. I knew who knew the answers to the test. I knew who knew how to do the homework, right? And so I was able to navigate those waters until I began to really understand other principles.
Sure. So it sounds like the principle of community was
Yes,
working for you even at the age of
absolutely.
13 and
Yep.
being younger.
Absolutely. Yeah. And then that
So,
translated on in, like I said, into high school, same thing. Being an athlete, being, having that confidence, my parents, again, giving me that pretty loose rope to kind of come and go. And, it put me in a position to be a leader, and I didn't know what that meant then, but looking back, I certainly was able to walk in those shoes. So.
okay. Wow. So now we leave high school, and what's next for young Ryan?
Yeah, so this is where it starts to get interesting. So, you know, uh, I'm a senior in high school, and up to that point, my parents had a little bit of some college education, but no degree. So I really had no one pushing me in the college direction. Um, the lever I didn't pull was the guidance counselor. Never really had conversations there. But what I did know is that, okay, I don't know that I just want to go get a job, right? So let's put an X by that. I don't think I want to go to the military. Let's put an X by that. Well, all the thing that's left is you go to college, right? And then they were selling us this pill that if you go to college, everything will be all right, right? Go get a college degree and your life will be fantastic. And I took it. And so, however, I was right at my senior year, had the grades, had all the credentials, but I hadn't applied for college until late. And so, long story short, because of community, I was able to get into NC State. And I did under their ag program. Again, no interest to do that. I just knew college was for me the next step. And so, the young Ryan Sherrill learned over the course of what I call a 5.5-year party, which is really what college was. But I learned so much, not from books, but from experience. It really, really grew me up. I kept a couple of jobs because that work ethic went with me. And still, again, in college, I took that mindset because I hadn't developed the study habits from high school because, as I mentioned, and so college, that began to catch up with me. So my first couple of semesters, I got that if you don't get yourself together, you're going to have another address letter. And so I finally, after 2 of those, got myself together and went on and completed that college degree again, where had such a great time, and it was such a huge learning experience. But I didn't build as much community in college. Now that I'm thinking this through, I was more of a loner. I went out by myself. I kind of hung out by myself. I was pretty much a loner. I didn't build much relationship or community while I was in college. I think it was just an experience for me to kind of figure out what was my next. So.
So would that be because it was different Because what would you say that you've moved away from community because it had been all a community had been a part of your life from day one? So is it just
Yeah.
experiencing something different when you think back, or figuring out, okay, now I don't have all that community that has been there from day one. Let me try
Yeah.
to do my own thing.
Yeah. I think it was a combination of one, a bit of culture shock to start, right? Coming from Dunn to Raleigh. And then, yeah, I think it was, okay, I got to figure out, what's next for me. Like, I got to figure out my own. And, I had began to think that if I had begun to recognize that, okay, if everybody's doing it a certain way, does that make it? I began to challenge what was common, right? I began to question norm, and began to just look at the world through a different lens. I began to realize that, if I keep on this path, will it really lead me into the life that I'm really desiring? Because I was working, like I said, those jobs. By the time I was a senior, I was working full time for what was then 360 in their in credit and activations. For our young listeners, back then you had to call to have your phone activated, and there was someone on the other line, and you had to give them all this information. And I was that guy. And in the midst of all of that, I really began to understand some of my gifts and talents. I began to understand some of the things that I didn't like or didn't want. Working behind four walls or behind the desk was one of those things. And so yeah, I think it was just a season of me being away from family, right? Being, having that comfort, maybe, if you will, of family for so long, and now coming into my own and figuring out, okay, how do I begin to live the life that I'm supposed to live? And then also, just full transparency, a lot of my family hadn't achieved the lifestyle that I desired. So I began, again, just question and challenge a lot of things. And that time alone helped me to be able to do that.
Mm-hmm. Top 3 takeaways from your experience in college.
Top 3 takeaways. If you're going to make the investment in an education, make sure it's in something that you want to learn. Top 3 takeaways from college. I'll say do the work, like do the work. And then the other is, it's not a takeaway. It was a learning, but build relationships. Looking back, I do wish I had built more relationships than I did when I was in college.
Mm-hmm. If you have built those relationships, what would that equal now for you as you look back?
Well, one, my wife says I need more friends. 2, it goes back to, opportunities and being networked. And so some of the hills and hurdles that I had to climb, some of those could have been shortened or lowered by having some of those relationships and being networked. Yeah.
Okay.
But
So
I wouldn't change a thing.
I get it. No, I totally get it. We wouldn't be who we are, right?
Right. That's
Would
right.
anything changed?
That's right.
So we leave college. From college to where you are today, what were some of the highlights of your life, good, bad, or indifferent, that they stick out to you when you think from that point to this point?
Yeah. Well, I'll take us on a journey, and if I can I throw some low points in there?
What is your story?
Because without the low points, the heights aren't as high, right? So leaving college, like I said, I was working for a cell phone company at the time, and I began to get to know myself, right? And I knew that, okay, but working behind this wall and this cubicle is not for me. So the week after I graduated, I asked for if there was a sales position available in the company, to which there was. And I started selling cell phones in Durham at their Alltel location on Hillsborough Road. My very first high coming out of college was earning 50, 60 grand my first year right out of college. I thought I was crushing it, right? I thought I had made it. And in that year of coming out of college, the lows also began with the highs, because right out of college, because I was making the money, and here's where I'll get a little, I don't want to get too teachy here, but it's just my nature. But, you know, I didn't have the knowledge, the understanding of finances, right? So here I am in my first job. I leave college with about $30,000 worth of student loan debt. And I had about 10 credit cards maxed out to the tune of about 11 grand. So that's 40 grand worth of debt. I get this job where I'm making, you know, what I think is good money, right? So I can afford a brand new truck. So I go buy a truck, 30 grand, right? I'm living in a nice apartment in North Hills. I'm traveling. I'm having a good time, right? So here I am, probably 24 years old. I'm $70,000, $80,000 in debt. And I start working this job, and, you know, I get paid on Friday. On Tuesday, I'm broke, right? Something ain't right, right? And so this is the learnings that I start to have. And so I want to share this story for the relevance of our conversation. I had been at that job for about a year, and we were coming up on MLK Day. I think it was 2001. And it was the first time that Dunn, that metropolis, was going to host its very first MLK Day breakfast and parade. And so I went to my boss and told him, I said, hey, bro, I'm, you know, and we had a good relationship. I was the top 1 or 2 salesmen in the store the whole time. We were crushing it. And so he said, I told him, I said, man, I'm going to take Monday off. I'm going to go home. It's the first time Dunn is having this MLK parade and breakfast. I'm going to have a good time. You know, I'll see you next Tuesday. He said, no. Excuse me? He said, no, Ryan, I need you to be in the office. You can't take that day off. You're coming to work. I said, no, bro, I'm going, white guy, young white guy. I said, no, I'm going home to this parade and this breakfast for my hometown. First time ever, got to be there. And he said, you can either come to work or you can go get your stuff. I'm getting to know myself, right? Mm-hmm. Well, I went and got my stuff and walked away from this, what I thought, great job at the time. And it began a very, very quickly spiral downward for me. I enjoyed the breakfast. I enjoyed the parade, but my life changed dramatically after that because I still had this debt load. I had still made these financial decisions that I didn't take into account. I would have made the same decision because that's just who I was at that time. But, you know, it put me in, then I began to realize this entrepreneurial spirit that was inside of me. And so the next height was that I began this journey of starting businesses. So the very first business I started after that was a fashion line, not design, but I would go upstate to New York, buy clothes in bulk, come down, sell them, right? The hustle, and enjoyed that, right? I felt like I had my swagger back because I was in control of my life, right? And so I did that for a few years, and then I ended up getting in the car business. My first year in the car business was another height. Felt like I was getting back on track. And then after a year of that, a friend of mine, we thought we should go start a cell phone store. So this is my second entrepreneurial venture, which we failed horribly. And I went back to the car business. And so I'll pause there because we're kind of getting into the story, see if you've taken anything from that. And then we'll get into a pretty interesting part of my life. But there was a couple of highs and some lows that brought me up to that point.
Yeah, I want to go back to that decision, that moment.
Yeah.
With the supervisor. Mm-hmm. And I'm assuming when you say he's young white guy, he's younger than you? That's
a good question. We were around the same age. Yeah, if he wasn't younger, he was right there at it.
Okay.
Pretty close.
Okay.
Yeah.
And for at this point, you've pretty much written your own ticket throughout your life. I mean, I know that there's been times that your parents have said no, or this one said no, but nothing like this where it's like, no, this
Right.
has to do with family and community.
Right. Right.
That's
Right.
first. That's number one. And here it is, no. So take us back to that moment, number one, of making the decision to get your stuff and just walk out. Number two, being at the breakfast, if you can remember how you were feeling that day, and then the next day after you realized, oh, I got to figure this thing out.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I mean, in the moment, it was the decision. I was never the rebellious kid, right? You know, if my parents asked me to do something, I'd just rather get it done. My brother, on the other hand, he's going to give you all the excuses and the reasons why he ain't going to do it. I'm just going to get it done and move on, right? Because I got other things to do. So I wasn't the rebellious kid. However, I ain't like the demands. Like, like even if it would have been more of a conversation, ask, little empathy, it probably wouldn't have changed it, but it would have went over a little better. And so in that moment, it was probably pride and ego, and just my character was like, no, you're not going to tell me what I can't do. Right. And so in that moment, it was very easy, blunt decision. I had made up my mind. This is a historical moment, right? I am going to be a part of this. Like nothing is more important than that Monday at that moment. I'm sure in the breakfast, and the parade, I probably felt empowered, right? I probably felt like I had my Superman cape on, right? Like I made the right decision. This was worth it. You know, this is historical. This is what Dr. King fought for. You know, I probably a whole lot of other thoughts and some choice words along with that. But after it was over and I woke up, yeah, it was a new reality set in. You know, and I tell you, just, you know, I'm a pretty transparent guy. I mean, I lost, you know, that lifestyle, right? I ended up losing my truck. I ended up losing my nice apartment over in North Hills. Like life, it became a struggle. I went from what I thought was life to struggle. But man, it made of me who I am today. So after it was over, yeah, it set me on a path of, okay, what's next? How do I pick myself back up?
Yeah. I want to ask one more question about this situation, not particularly about you, but or him. I guess it has to do with both of you guys at the end of the day. But when we talk about, now you hear a lot about diversity and being sensitive, you know, and understanding understanding other cultures and things of that nature. We hear those are the buzz things that are happening in corporations right now, right? Where back then that wasn't necessarily as much the case or sensitive, because when you tell me that you had this conversation with him and the meaning and understanding, if we flip that coin, I don't know if he really thought that was important.
No, I'm sure he didn't. Yeah, no, I'm sure he didn't think it was important. It was, yeah, didn't, you know, and this is where I've been with all of this. I'm not ready, know if you're ready to go down that path, but with this whole, you know, social injustice and, you know, it's who I am, Sherelle. It's where I'm at.
Let's do it.
And, you know, expecting someone else who has not had your experience to understand your experience, I think is a very unreasonable ask, right? Like, he didn't get it because he didn't have to get it, right? It wasn't a second thought to him. You know, and I say that because, you know, in the work I do now, I got an email from one of our business partners, and he said, Ryan, man, I'd love to just have lunch with you one day. He said, you know, I had no idea of the racial injustice and inequities that existed in our communities, in our world. And in parentheses, he said, because I didn't have to, and because of my white privilege. and he meant well, right? It was a very transparent, open moment. And like, I get chills thinking about it now. When I read the email, I was like, this guy, white guy, he was hurting. Like, he really had been awakened to what was going on. But even still, no matter how much I share, try to help him relate and empathize. I'm grateful that he wants to, right? And I'm catering to that. But to really understand that isn't even a reality. I'm sorry, I'm getting a call through my other phone, computer here. But to even understand that isn't even a reality. So to have expected him to understood that, nah, not even a chance.
Mm-hmm.
Not even a
So
chance.
is this where I may not understand because I'm not, and it could be about any situation, right? We're talking about injustice now, but if I'm in pain and you never had that pain before, stomach pain, leg pain, whatever, you
Right.
just don't have a point of reference
Right.
for it. So is it for them to understand, or is it empathy? To empathize.
So my definition of empathize is to put yourself in someone else's shoes.
Okay.
Right? To try to put yourself in that experience and then see how you may or may not respond. So certainly can't understand, can't relate. Maybe there's some opportunity. Say it again.
I said, so what would it be?
I mean, maybe there's some opportunity to empathize. But I don't know. I just don't have that expectation, right? Like, sure. For me, it's to seek to understand, right? Because what happens so many times, and I feel like we're jumping ahead here, but so many times when we get into these conversations, what happens is that it becomes, we begin to take a stand or take a position, right? And then it becomes a right, wrong, right? And for me, it's not about right, wrong. It's about understanding, right? I don't need you to say whether, looting shouldn't happen or whether the police should, like, none. It's not get into the right, wrong discussion, because automatically we're not going to get on the same page there. All I'm saying is understand. And on the same token, I didn't expect him to understand, right? My desire to go to this parade, right? Like, that wasn't even, I wouldn't even had that conversation. He would not have understood, because we had numbers to meet, right? We had a business to serve. We had clients coming in. It's going to be a busy day, right? So now to put that into comparison to you going to a breakfast, right? Like, so, yeah, I don't know. I'm still dealing with that, but to me, that's a heavy lift to ask someone to, some of the experiences that I've been through, to have someone to really understand it if you haven't experienced it would be tough. And I'm sure you could relate.
Absolutely. So what are we asking then? And let's take it away from just injustice. Yeah. Let's talk about, you're married.
Yep.
And you have 2 sons.
I do.
And we'll get back to where that came in in a minute, all of that stuff. But at some point, your wife was pregnant.
Yeah.
And there's no way for you to understand everything that's happening with her and her body while she's pregnant.
No way.
So, and she may have told you some things and you still were like, I don't get it.
Many.
So then what was it for you to do?
To care, show concern, and seek to understand. And in my seeking to understand, then it becomes, okay, well, now what can I do? But if I don't seek to understand what she's dealing with, then I'm going to take a position of, which I probably did in sometimes, oh, it ain't that bad, right? Oh, it'll be over soon, right? Or, trouble don't last always, right? But in seeking to understand, it's like, oh, okay, well, let me get a pillow, right? Let me massage, let me hold and support, let me, and it's a matter of being there. And sometimes, And I mean, I'll be honest, one time while she was in labor, you know, we went to the little training where they told me all these things that I should do while she's going through that. And I'm doing it. I'm whispering in her ear and trying to encourage her. One time she said, will you just shut up? Right. And sometimes you just need to shut up. Right. And just be there to learn and have experiences alongside. Because again, I think it's impossible to understand. Let's take it biblical. And this might not be the best analogy, but so many things in the Bible we don't understand, right? Like I don't understand, speaking of birth and pregnancy, how a virgin got pregnant, right? Like that would never, don't make sense. Don't understand that, but I believe it, right? And so I don't need to understand it to believe it, right? And so sometimes it's just saying, you know what? They're hurting. Let me get on board with that, right? And now I begin to think, but if I'm like, well, how does that happen? How are you hurting? Why? And I start trying to question, right? Now I can figure out any way to make it make sense to me, but it's not about making it make sense to me. It's trusting that that person is going through something and having an experience. And how do I come over on their side of the table and say, how can I be of service?
Okay. I see where you're going. So we can take what we talked about with your why and apply it to this same situation of injustice, those same things that you just discussed for all sides.
Yeah, so that helps to clear it up to some degree. Now, there still needs to be some actions, right? Like,
Sure.
there still needs to be some things that need to happen. You know, I'll say this just to help maybe bring a little more clarity. It might cloud it even more. I hope your inbox is filling up right now. Like, who is this dude? But so here's the thing for me. I don't, and I'm still wrestling with all of this, but remember I said earlier, I try to think outside of what seems to be the norm, right? If everybody's running in that direction, I want to pause and say, well, let me look at it over here, right? And so what I'm still wrestling with is this question. Is our fight, Sherelle, is the fight racism? Right? Because as wrong as it is, yes, I believe it's a sin. I believe it is an evil. However, I don't know that there are laws against it. So if a person chooses to hate me, that's their right. I don't want to fight the person who has chosen to spend their energy hating me. Now, don't kill me because you hate me. But is the fight against racism, or is the fight against the social injustices and the inequities that we face? Now, we got to know what the problem is, right? And so I'll say that to help frame that I'm not talking about the racist trying to get on the same page and have this conversation, because in the midst of all of this, where I found myself was at a position of, okay, Ryan, be slow to speak, quick to listen, and really seek to understand, right? Both sides. Not racism, but I believe that there are some good white people who don't understand, right? And given the opportunities, would like to try. Those are the people I want to have conversations with on both sides. I would love to get people from both sides of those in the room. Not the ones who think everybody that wear blue is stupid, or the ones that think everybody who wear red is right. So taking these stands and these positions, which continues to separate us, right? Which continues to divide us. America is the mother of division, right? Everything is an ism or a color or a something. But how do we build common unity?
That community again, common unity.
Yeah.
So there's a quote by James Baldwin that I want to bring in right here. It says, we can disagree and still love each other unless your disagreement is rooted in my oppression and denial of my humanity and right to exist. And that's kind of what I hear you saying.
All day long. And James Baldwin was a genius.
Yes, he would.
Absolutely. You just summed it up.
So America is made as a mixing pot.
Mm-hmm.
And it's made for differences, for everyone to
Absolutely.
bring their differences and things of that nature. But then one thing that ties us together at the end, would you say would be humanity, being human?
Yeah, I mean, it is the thing. I mean,
Yeah.
we talk about it. There's two colors, in my opinion, that matter: red and green. Right? We all bleed red, and I'll say, desire and to have the lifestyle, need to have the economics, right, to
Mm-hmm.
function in this capitalistic society, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's the other part of this whole conversation for me too, is that whole community. Who are the people who want to see humanity uplifted, right? Not a race,
Yeah.
not just the class, not just the side of the aisle, but who wants to see humanity as a whole uplifted. And that's a red and green conversation, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
Those are the only colors that matter
In those contexts, in the
in those
context of
contexts, right?
blood and the context of money,
Of money, yeah.
for the most, which is just resource.
Resources, right, right, right,
Yeah.
right. Which,
Yeah.
but that comes through community, right? Because in
Sure.
community, everybody doesn't have to have the same amount of anything, right? Because when you're in community, nobody lacks,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Mm-hmm.
We all are looking out for one another.
Yeah. Yeah. No matter where you fall.
Absolutely, yeah. We all have something that we can contribute to the greater good of others, but we're all also lacking something that could help for the greater good of others. So in community, we close those gaps.
Mm. So now, and there used to be a time where we talked about the village, and we talked, and there was community, and you looked after one another, and especially in the African American community,
Yep.
even more so, right?
Yep.
You couldn't, if you came from school and you was walking down the road and you were in trouble, you were in trouble all the way down the road,
Yep.
not just when you got home.
Mm-hmm.
And they knew before you got home, so you couldn't
Absolutely.
even hide it.
Like, how did that happen before text message and email and social media?
Right.
I don't know.
I think it was a faster line than text messaging and email. It got around fast.
Absolutely.
We just went global now. I think that's what happened. We went
Mm-hmm.
more global than community.
Mm-hmm.
So as we talk about this, which is really good, and thank you for sharing your heart and being open and honest. Now, going from the young man who tried to figure himself out, that went through all of these different entrepreneurship businesses to get to where you are today, married with 2 boys, fill in that gap for us.
Sure. So I stopped the story at that second stint in working in the car business, selling cars. And I had got to the point, Sherelle, where I was just very unfulfilled, right? Like, I had this bit of a height, I had this tremendous low, and I felt like now I was just in the valley trying to figure out, like, okay, what I thought was success isn't. It can also be taken or given away, in my case, at the blink of an eye. How do I do something different? Now, let me put this in context. As I mentioned earlier, I did enough to get by high school, college, right? So I'm right at this point, I'm probably a 27-year-old with a high school diploma and a college degree. I've never read a book. Never. Like, I've played with a couple, probably scanned some pages of some, but just to have sat down and totally consumed a book, never had. So I'm walking on a car lot one day and I'm praying, like, God, there's got to be more to life than this. Like, I'm frustrated, I'm unfulfilled, like, this is not it. And one of the guys that I do call friend today, don't know how it happened, anything. He handed me a book called Rich Dad, Poor Dad by Robert Kiyosaki. And I read that book from cover to cover, completely devoured it. And that book opened my eyes to what I felt like was all the answers to the questions I had been asking myself, right? And I hope somebody catches that, right? That so many of the answers to the questions we ask are in the pages of a book. And when I read that, I began to understand, okay, there's kind of 2 different ways to operate or even to view the world. And what Robert Kiyosaki says, without getting too detailed, is that, there's a group of people who experience what we call financial freedom, right? They live a cash lifestyle, they time freedom, they come and go, do what they want. Well, that's the lifestyle I wanted, right? I didn't know really what it was, but I knew that was like it was freedom. For me, it's always been about freedom, right? I think that's why I bucked at the no, you can't go to this. No, I'm free. So for me, it's always been about this pursuit of freedom, time freedom, money freedom, decision freedom. But I was locked. I was in bondage to my lack of knowledge, which did not align, which was not congruent. The way I thought and my limited knowledge there was no way I could get to where I wanted to go. Right? My behaviors, my actions were not congruent with the lifestyle I wanted. And that was the frustration. Well, when I began to take inventory of my life, everything that I knew about money, finances, business, anything, well, I learned from individuals on the other side of that quadrant, right? So nobody had taught me those skills and gave me that information to begin my journey to really where I wanted to be. And so after I read that book, got very frustrated. Then I really got frustrated. I was like, okay, how do I do this? And it was shortly after that where my life took a tremendous turn. And I was on my way to Tampa, Florida, long story short, and I ended up falling asleep driving, ended up running up under the back of a tractor trailer like 4 a.m. and just ripped the car to shreds. And long story short, they airlifted me to Orlando Regional, put me back together. A week later, I flew home. Around that same time, our home church burned, completely destroyed by fire. In the midst of all of that, God orchestrated for me to now have my very first mentor. Another nugget. This was a guy who was a very successful insurance agent in Dunn. And I knew he was successful because I knew where he lived. And in Dunn, there's only a couple places that you live if you're extremely successful. And so I had the opportunity to go meet with him. And I knew right away that he knew something I didn't know. And he had some of those answers to what I wanted to know. And I had no interest in insurance, but I started going to his Friday morning training sessions where he trained his team. And it was almost like he was talking directly to me. He started saying things like, Ryan, it's not what happens to you that determines your success. It's what you do about what happens to you. Because now, keep in mind, I'm back home in Dunn. I'm in the bedroom where I grew up in. I broke my leg in the accident, so my mom's putting my socks on my feet. Like I've lost everything again, right? And like, so I'm at another low point, and I'm feeling like, what in the world? Like, and so when he said that, I was like, wow, it's kind of just, if it's to be, it's up to me, right? Like, it's almost like I had this rebirth of freedom. And from there, I became this personal, well, let me back up. And then he said a quote, and I think Jim Rohn is accredited to, where he said that, and you heard this quote at our City Club event, where he said that success isn't something that you pursue. Success is something that you attract by the person you become. And he started saying things like, Ryan, you are who you are, where you are in your life because of your thinking, right? He said, if you want to change things in your life, you got to change things in your life, right? And just all these different things that began to turn my life philosophy upside down. And then I became this personal development junkie. I went from this kid who hadn't read much to reading everything, going to every conference, convention, workshop, you name it. And it just began to set my life on this totally different trajectory, which has brought me to where I am today. And I'm so blessed and fortunate.
So where are you today?
Today, I am the husband of a beautiful wife, proud father of 2 young boys. I just told her the other night, I was like, you got me in here at 44-year-old with a 6-month-old. But it's a blessing. It took me a minute to get to that path where, voices of a Black man, right? Where I felt like I could be a husband and a father, right? Like a responsibility that I didn't take lightly. And I felt like I had to get myself together to a certain point before I could really take on the ownership of that. And so, yeah, a proud father of two young boys. And, Sherelle, just kind of going back to that other conversation, when I began, I saw all of the brutality in a different light, after having two boys, right? Because for me, if I was out there and got myself in some type of situation, or one of those situations was imposed upon me, I got to take it, right? Whatever happened, it just happens, right? But when I began to think about that, at some point, I've got to trust that my two boys got to go out there in a world, and I got to wonder if they come home at night. I got to wonder how they're being treated. I can't protect them, right? I could protect myself to whatever degree I could, right? But them, so it put it in a totally different perspective for me. And it's so unfortunate that, everybody's maybe seen that email now that's going around, that those two cute little brown boys will one day become black men, right? That the world will put in this box. And again, that's why I'm grateful for this platform, for us to be able to share our voices. And so anyway, that's another thing. And so, in 2015, because of my heart for serving others, my love for building community, I started Triangle Entrepreneurial Leadership, really just for that reason, because I wanted to build a community of like-minded individuals, entrepreneurs, small business owners. I knew the struggle, and I knew the value of bringing people together who love, care, and concern for one another. And that work over the course of about 4 years, opened the door. I was asked to come lead a local nonprofit called Jobs for Life, where we do kind of the same work. It's all about empowering people, uplifting humanity, but we focus on helping people get meaningful work. And we're also now adding to that mission entrepreneurial opportunities. So I get to lead that role as president and CEO. And again, such a blessing and a gift to be able to do that.
So you touched on something. It was definitely where I was going next. And,
Okay.
and it was about the boys.
Sure.
Being young black men.
Mm-hmm.
What's your hope, your dreams, and your fears?
So I always get beat up when I say this, but I like a little fight, so I'll say it again. Let me give the context, and then I'll come back to the hopes.
Absolutely.
And dreams. We as Black people, Black men for this context, have for way too long lived our life in fear. All right. Fear of master as a slave, fear of police brutality and, all the things that happened in the civil rights movement, fear of the war on drugs, fear of them taking the Black man out of the home, fear of getting stopped by the police, fear. And fear is a horrible emotion in which to live life. And for those who want to challenge this, and I'm not saying fear is opposite of being stupid, right? That's not what I'm saying. I'm saying fear in the context of a mindset, right? Of how you live, of what you project, right? Fear is a horrible emotion to live life from. And so I say that to say is that I don't live my life in fear. I'm not going to, and I'm not going to raise two little Black boys who live their lives in fear. Okay. It's not the emotion that I want them to live from. Now, I do want them to be smart. I do want them to be respectful and respected. I will give them the principles and the disciplines associated with success and all of those things. They will know how to act and behave and all of those things, but living in fear, no, ma'am. Hopes and dreams. I hope to be conscious enough to see their gifts and talents and begin to set them on the course of their purpose as soon as possible. Like the earlier I can help align them to their purpose, I believe the better they'll be. And then the other thing is I want them to think of others before they think of themselves, right? I want to, it's funny. I was thinking, not too long ago, I asked a friend of mine, like, what age do you take your kids to Disney, right? Like what age does it make sense? Certainly not 1 or 2, like my age, like they won't remember it. And then I started thinking like, no, like what age can I take them little jokers to Africa, right? And see how fortunate they are. Like, what age can I take them to do community service and give back and do things to help other people so that we can plant those seeds in their lives? And so I want them to be young men who care about people, who care about humanity. And we'll teach them all the success stuff, but that's not up to me. That's up to God. God has a plan for them ultimately. My goal is to get them aligned with that as soon as possible, if at all possible.
So because you are a leader in the community, and thank you for sharing that about your sons. Thank you so much in sharing. Because you are a leader in the community, what are we lacking? And your answer can be African American community or Black community. It can be society, community as society. It could be community as in North. Your answer is your answer of where that community lies for you. Mm-hmm. But what is it that we're lacking, and how do we gain it?
We're lacking leadership first and foremost, and that's not a punch. I'm saying this in the most general of sense. We're lacking leadership, and when I say that, I'm saying that to the father in the home. And I'm not saying that to the White House. I'm saying that to the father in the home. I'm saying that to, the kid on the football field, right? We are lacking the disciplines associated with leadership, because everything, I believe, as John Maxwell says, rises and falls on leadership, and people crave to be led. One of the greatest movements of our time was the March on Washington, right? And before, as we mentioned earlier, cell phones, text message, social media, how? I talk about not understanding, but believing, because I wasn't there, but how does a man get 250,000 people to Washington, D.C. without all of the technology advances that we have today? Well, it was two things. It was leadership and it was vision. And I believe that's the second thing that we're lacking, is vision. Without vision, people perish. It's not cliche, it's scripture directly from the word of God. Without vision, people perish. We as families, as communities, as local municipalities, as a state, as a country, as a world, we are perishing. And it's because we don't have vision. And vision doesn't come from outside of you. Vision comes from within you. Mm-hmm. And the more people that get a vision for their own lives, then the more vision we'll have for our community, the greater vision we'll have for our state, the more vision we'll have for our country, and the more vision we'll have for our world. But so many of us haven't taken responsibility for our own lives, right? We leave that to chance. We leave that to whatever happens, and we just kind of blow with the wind instead of having a life designed in the direction of some type of vision or purpose. And that's why I said purpose earlier with my boys, is to get them aligned to their purpose as soon as possible so they can craft a vision for their lives, and hopefully the vision that God has for them. And so vision and leadership, how do we get there? It's taking that responsibility and accountability for ourselves. If we get enough of people who have taken responsibility for their own lives and the outcomes of it, like you start building that community, now you got power, now you got leadership. But when we don't have, when you just got a few people who have taken that And that's a mindset, right? That takes a certain way of thinking, because we have been beat up and pushed down and by design, right? We've been made to feel we have to be dependable. We can't think for ourselves, right? Even with this whole situation, like, we are human beings, not human doings. We are human beings, and God gave us the capacity to think and do for ourselves. And if we don't, you're getting me riled up. If we don't take responsibility, then we're going to continue to lose. We're losing, and we don't have to lose. We shouldn't be losing as a people, as a society, as a world, as a community. We should not be losing all the technology, all the resources, all the gifts and talents, all the things that we have, and we are getting our butts kicked, and we shouldn't be, and we don't have to be. And how do we win? When we take personal responsibility for that which has been given to us to steward. And the better we steward, then the more we get. So anyway, done.
I don't mind the passion. Bring it on. Bring it on. No, so that leads me to this question.
Yes.
What's your mark legacy on the world at the end of the day when it's all said and done?
You know, I have my own vision statement for the world. And it's to create a world that is loving, abundant, and where everyone feels empowered. That's my legacy, is that I want people to feel love, be loved, give love. I want to create love. I want to create abundance. And that's not a function of money. It's a mindset. It's a thinking, right? It's because as a man thinketh, so is he. As a man thinketh, that's how he behaves and reacts. And then that's what comes to him. And then I want everyone to feel empowered. Like, so many people don't feel like they have a voice. Like, that's, who I want to fight for, are the people who don't have a voice, and they're frustrated and they're not being heard, and they feel powerless. And I want people to feel empowered because we have it. God gave it to us. And so how do we gain our powers? By using the gifts and talents that he put inside of us to go out and produce something, right? Right from the beginning of time, when he put man in the garden, he said, go be fruitful, multiply, subdue, and have dominion. That means ownership. That means control. Like, he put us here to own something, to have something, to control stuff, not to be controlled. And so it's those principles, Sherelle, that I believe we've just gotten so far away from. And so again, my legacy is to create a world where people love, where we live life from an abundance mentality, and we extend our power. We feel empowered to go out and make a change, make a difference.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So I've got some rapid fire questions as we wrap up. You ready for them?
I'm ready. Yes, I'm ready.
All right. Favorite movie?
So that's the thing. Like, I don't have a lot of favorites, but I tell you, all right, so here's where you start to expose yourself. Like, if I had to say it, it's probably American Gangster with Denzel. Like, I love that hustle grind mentality, right? And then once he gets caught, I'm done. I don't want to see no more. But yeah.
The fact that they didn't even think that it could be a black man.
Right? Yeah, I mean, so many nuggets in that, right? Like,
yeah.
I just watch it over and over again. Like, just
all right,
because it's a mindset. It's the way he thought, right? And what he was doing was wrong, but his mindset, right? But yeah.
Yeah. Favorite ice cream?
Butter pecan.
Butter pecan. Okay. Favorite food or meal?
Food or meal? Huh. I don't know. I mean, I really do love a good salad, but it's not normal. It's got like everything in it, like everything. Yeah.
What are some of those everythings that we wouldn't think about on the salad?
So spinach as a base, the main things, tomatoes, maybe cucumbers, but some of the everythings are going to be raisins, peaches, walnuts, beets. It's like my power bowl. It's like a nourishment bowl. Just how much nourishment, like stuff that's good for the body. How much can I put in one bowl, and then chop it up and eat it. Yeah.
Okay. Favorite hobby?
I love to work, but I also love to play hard. So I love traveling. I love destination vacations. Just talked to somebody the other day, like I love, these all-inclusive destination vacations. But when I'm around, I haven't done much of it, getting ready to get back into it. I love going out on the golf course. It's not something that I've gotten super good at, but I love that peace of mind and freedom that you find out there on the golf course. So, yeah.
So you mentioned destination vacations. Favorite place to visit?
Whew. I've been once, and it was a while ago, but so much about it would make it my favorite, and that was probably Japan. But that's not something you can do regular. That's a long flight.
What
Second
was
to
it?
that is probably like Cancun. That's the simple, but I love it. I have a couple places over there I just love to go. Yeah.
What was it about Japan?
Um, Again, I think it was just like upon landing there, you saw the advancement, like how far beyond us they were. Like when it was just, again, I think it's just a mindset, a framework of we're the leader, we're out ahead, we have the advancements, we have the technology, and then it's where I fell in love with sushi. So
Okay.
mhm.
Okay. So now I ask all these questions each interview that I do because it's what you talked about earlier is meeting people at the human level first, knowing that we're all human beings. That's a place that we can kind of agree and then
Absolutely.
find other places to agree and other places of commonality because we are all as humans more alike than we are different.
Yep.
And it allows us to find that place without just seeing the differences automatically and just going with the differences. So thank you for entertaining me with our rapid
My
fire
pleasure. My pleasure.
questions. I've enjoyed this conversation. I've enjoyed your passion and your honesty, and I thank you so much for it. I want to give you a chance to whatever's on your heart, whatever you feel like you've never been able to be seen or heard about or hadn't had a chance to be heard on, to society, to community, to an individual, whatever it is, I want to give you this chance right now. The floor is yours.
Wow. My heart is for people. And my life was headed in a particular direction and I don't even know that he knows it to this day, like how impactful he was to set me on that track or that course for learning. Right. And I adopted that philosophy. And so, I really just want to challenge people to really take inventory of your life, right? And really have the serious conversation, like, what do you want with or from your life? Okay. And if what you're doing today is not going to get that for you, seek a mentor, seek some support, seek help if it's that deep. But I say that to say is I want to challenge people to have a vision for your life. Have a vision for your finances. I believe the lack of financial literacy is the greatest disservice ever done to Americans, right? To our people. We were taught to go get a job. We were taught to get in debt, right? We're taught that, right? Right. Like, we are consumers by nature. We go and just consume. And then when we look back over our life, we don't have anything but stuff to show for it. And then generations behind us have nothing, right? And so when we talk about the inequities and things of that nature, as a people, I want us to take some ownership in that. So all of that to say is that get a vision for your life. Decide what that is, and don't look at what you don't have, what skills you lack. Find a mentor, find a community where you can get around other people who can help you to begin to go down that path. Because I want to see people win, Sherelle. That's all I want. I want whatever that is for them, right? And everybody's victory is different. But however winning looks to you, get a plan for your life and follow that plan. I mean, you're the ultimate planner, right? Strategist. And how important is that for a business to see their vision through? And it's the same thing for our lives. And so I don't know. I hope that encourages somebody, just get someone's attention, that because you can have, like, there was a point in time in my life where people where that same mentor told me, he said, Ryan, you got to dream. And I was like, dude, I don't know how to dream. Like, there was a point in time in my life, Sherelle, where I could not imagine where I was going or what was possible. That's how low I was. But I was able to come up out of that. And so I'm hoping that others will. And if I can help, I'm happy to do so. But yeah, I just want to see people win, man. I want to see people live their life to the fullest.
Live your life to the fullest. Well, we have had a wonderful conversation, Ryan Way. I thank you for sharing your story through your lens. It has been amazing. I've learned some new things. I found out some things you're really passionate about, which was fun. It was really fun, and I thank you for sharing them with us today. To our viewers, I say thank you so much for being with us today on The Voices of a Black Man. Now you've got the chance to hear Ryan Ray share his story through his lens. Now the action is up to you. We all have biases in our life. Some we not aware of, and some we are. So maybe as he talked today, there were some things that hit you a different way than they've hit you before. The question is, what do you do about it? Ryan said it. I say it a lot. It starts with you. It starts with me, checking ourselves first, making the changes in ourselves first, and then to our family and our community and the world. This has been The Voices of a Black Man. I am CK James. Hopefully you'll tune in tomorrow, same time, 12 p.m. Eastern, same channel, same bat channel. And we look forward to talking to you then. Take care and have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you.